It has to do with CSS. So last module, module 2, we did HTML, a document that really contained the content and structure of our web page. And now what we're going to do is we're going to add another document or another file called CSS, or Cascading Style Sheet, which really, what it's going to do is it's going to control the style and presentation of our web page. And the beauty of this is we're going to keep these documents, these files, separate, so we can change one without having to change the other. So we can update our web page, refresh the look of it with the style and presentation without changing and having to go back and change all the content and structure that we've already created. Or vice versa, we can go in and change content without worrying about, okay, did this style really follow? We have already set those rules in place. And what we're going to do is we're going to take a web page, an HTML that we did last week, and this is the one I used, or the one I'm going to start with. Just by using a cascading style sheet, we're going to create something a little bit more pleasant, a little bit more aesthetic than we had. All right, and the way this is going to look in the end is when you go back to your file space, we're going to create these files, and we're going to put them into the same folder that we did for our HTML. So if I open up that web management folder, I'm struggling here. All right, actually I left my, that's the HTML that I used last week, but I actually created another one for this week, and I put it in the same folder. You're welcome to create folders of your own, Lab 1, Lab 2, if it makes more sense to keep your work organized. And once again, you see right here's the file, the CSS.css. So I'm going to create a CSS cascading style sheet. I'm going to save it as a .css. And I'm going to upload it into that folder. And then any logo, I'm going to use UC logo, and actually notice I had some pictures of moon. So I'm going to put those pictures in the folder also. All right. So I'm going to do things when I upload them into the file space. I'm going to put them on the same folder. But down here, and on my desktop, I have a folder called Sample Present here, and then I have everything that I need. I've got the file, the HTML, the CSS, all in the same folder, so they can find each other, they can locate each other. All right, so we're going to jump ahead, and we're going to go right here to our CSS and our HTML. So here's my HTML document, and I'm using Notepad++, and then I've created this CSS, right? And the way that looks, first off, we talked about we could do the style within the HTML. Once again, now it's not two documents. I gotta go back and edit everything if I'm going to change either just the style or the content. So what I'm going to do is, instead of doing it internally, I'm doing it externally. And the command I'm going to use is right here inside my HTML document. All right. I'm going to call it style sheet, and the type is text CSS, and the reference is, and that is the name. My style.css is the name of my CSS file that I'm going to create. I've already created it. And I want to emphasize right now that nobody expects you to memorize and be able to spit that out on a test or tell me anything. You can always look that up. So you just want to be able to Google, how do I reference a CSS? Or on everything I'm going to go over here, you can walk through and stop my video and create yours, your HTML and CSS along the way, or you can simply use some of the tutorial pages I've given you just to look things up. Don't be afraid to Google. Einstein said, don't memorize anything you can look up, and I'd like to agree with that. All right, so once I've got linked to my style sheet, I'm going to go back to my style sheet, and now what I do is I type in body, and that's going to change the style of everything that's in the body on my HTML page. So what I'm going to do is start typing in some things. And once again, you don't have to look things up. You don't have to memorize things. You can always look them up. So the first thing we're going to do is do a background color. And we put in the command, so background color. Got that right. And then there is a colon. And then we put in the color. And I just know the color black is all zeros, 6 zeros. That's hexadecimal. There's actually web programs out there or pages that have color pickers. So you can say, that one, that color, and it'll tell you what the hexadecimal color is. All right, or you can do a nice web search on that. So that will change the background color. And then I added an image. I had some moons on my page. So I'm going to go ahead and add background image. All right, once again, colon. And then I need to tell it. And what I had, notice in my folder here, I've got a picture of the moons there. So it's moons.jpg. All right, so I just need to give it that URL, and it's in the same folder, so I don't have to go too far. Although there's ways to reference other folders. So moons.jpg, all right, and another colon there, parentheses, and I got to end my sentence with a semicolon. Okay. And a crazy thing happens is it ends up repeating. So I'm going to do this background repeat and actually get rid of. So once again, you put something up there and all of a sudden it's repeating. Just do a little web search and it'll make sense to you as you play around with this. Always end in a colon. And the other thing I want to do is I got a black background, and remember I had a black text. So if I just hit now, it's going to be black text on black background, pretty poor form. So now I'm just going to change the color of my text, and that's going to be an easy one. Again, a bunch of F's is white, and then I got to close. Okay, so let's just save that CSS, my style sheet, and now I go back. Here's my page before I just made the additions to my CSS, and pretty nice, I think. All right. I don't like the color of those links, and I don't like the way this just goes on forever and ever. So there's some things I can do here. I'm going to go back to my style sheet, and I've actually cheated here. Actually, let's keep that there. But okay. So I said I didn't like the links. And remember the anchor tag or the A tag, right, was back here. So everything in the anchors was this A, right, anchor tag. So now in my style sheet, I say, hey, everything that's an A, let's change the color of those things. So let's go back here and let's change the color. And once again, I've done a little research and I like the color D8, D8, D8. Syntax, I better put a pound sign in front of that, and always end my commands with a colon, or semicolon, sorry. All right, so that's that. That should change the color of my links. Let's just go ahead and save it. Go back here to my web page, refresh, and much better links now. A little, because I got that black background. It's tough to use, the blue link or whatever the color what it was before. All right. Next thing we wanted to do, notice I've got div and I got div header and div.main. So what I can do is I've got several divisions in my HTML document. So here's my HTML document. What I can do is I can give the divs, I can classify them. So I can say this one is class equals header. Now I can treat it differently, the font and color and all that kind of stuff, than I do the rest. So I can come back up here and call this, make sure I do it right here. I can call this division, I can call that class header, or not header, main. So I got two different classes now, or divisions. So I can go back here to my CSS, and I can treat it differently. Well, for all of it, I want to do something. This is kind of standard. So this works for all of the divisions that I have. And we're just going to say, we're really talking browser to browser. I'm going to talk about the font family we'd like to use. You can research exactly what that means. But what this is saying is, hey, if you understand Verdana, I want you to use Verdana, which is the font. If you don't understand that, go ahead and use Geneva. And if you don't really know that one, use sans serif. And close everything with a semicolon. All right. Now the header, all right. I'm going to do something here. I'm going to do a different color and a different font. So here, but then the header, I'm going to say color, colon, and I'm going to use red, FF0000, semicolon, and I'm going to make the font size really relatively big. So font size, colon, and we're just going to use 30 point. And in the main section, we're going to go down here and we're just going to worry about the font size. We'll leave the color as it was before. So we're going to go font size 10 point, colon, and then I'm going to do this thing. We talked about a command, or I talked about I didn't like that those words just went on and took up so much of the page. I want to make it more compact, so I want to kind of make it a column. And the way I do that is I give this command called width, and I'm going to leave it at 400 pixels. And you can play around with that, you know. And I think that's good. So I'm going to save that and go back to my web page, and let's see how well I did. If I refresh, it didn't do well. So that means hopefully I can go back here and pick up something really easy that I forgot. And what I did is I simply back in my CSS and HTML, I didn't save my HTML file. Remember, we changed the class header and the class main. I had to save that, and then I went back to my CSS and I changed the I changed the div.header and div.main, all those. So I just had to save everything. So now when I go back to my web page and refresh it, it's starting to look a lot like the one I had before. All right, I made some changes already. Notice I got this little logo here. This is a little different, just something to show you something else you can do. We could put that in with CSS and overlay it in some manner, but I want it to be in the document. So for that to be in the document, once again, CSS, I'm not going to change that. I'm going to go back to the HTML. And at the HTML down at the bottom, I'm going to put in a command, and the command here within HTML is the img command, and img is source equals, and my file, I can show you my file, but I called it uc logo dot jpg, and I want to control the width of it. So once again, I can put the kind of commands in the same line. So width equals 50, and this command we can actually close on the same line. So you just put the forward slash and then the close bracket in. Hang out. You want to save your work. So now when we go back to my web page, this is the one we've been working on. So if I just update it, there comes that logo that I added. So in a nutshell, HTML is the content and structure. CSS is the style and presentation. I apologize, you may have to go back and watch my demonstration again, but we took a very simple HTML document, and using the cascading style sheets, we turned it into something quite a bit more aesthetic, more pleasing. That's what I had before. And the way you do that is you create that CSS file using Notepad, Notepad++, and you include any pictures that you're going to use in your web page, and you upload those into the same folder, either the same folder you used before or create a folder, as I said, and then just as we did before, I'm reposting the uploading and sharing from UC file space, so you can refer to that. Once again, have some fun with this. Look at the tutorials. I just showed you in a simple 10-15 minute video here how to make something very simple look pretty cool. Once again, have fun.